I admit my videos are borderline racist. I think the reason why even Japanese people find my videos funny is because they see truth to it. They're like, you imitate Japanese people really, really well, so I'm going to give you a pass on that. These are my experiences in Japan, based as a black person. All the Japanese people that are viewing my videos about the N-word and these racial problems, they are kind of learning, but at the same time, it's just fun.
Hey there, and thank you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another great conversation today. If you like the show and want to support us, please hit the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you great content week after week. And if you're feeling extra generous, give this video a like and share your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much. And now, let's get into it. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today we welcome Ricchaado from RicchaadoTV.
Hello.
One of Japan's most famous comedian.
Famous comedian. Well,
Yeah.
okay, I'll take it. I'll take it.
You've been doing comedy for quite a few years now on social media and have grown your channel to over 200,000 followers.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And people love interacting with your characters, Mr. Hashimoto and Momo-chan.
Yes.
And we're gonna talk about how they came to be and how that humor is able to bridge cultural gaps between the UK, where you're from, and Japanese culture, because you've got fans all over the place. But let's get back to the beginning. What brought you to Japan?
What brought me to Japan? Okay, so when I was 17, I went on a holiday to Japan. I started, so there was two instances. On 17 years old, I was on holiday. 19 years old, I moved to Japan. So 17 years old was the first ever time in Japan. I'd only started to have a small interest in Japanese, but I had some Japanese friends and they moved back to Japan. So they said, hey, come visit me in Japan for a bit. So what was funny is that my granddad, just by coincidence, happened to be in Japan as well. So I said, okay, I guess I can come to Japan, visit my granddad who works for the Angolan embassy. He worked for the Angolan embassy at the time.
Cool.
So I visited Japan just on a holiday for about a month, and I was able to stay with my friend. And then I went to visit my granddad on my dad's side. We're not very close, but I just thought, why not? He's family. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. I was just like, Japan is absolutely amazing. I want to learn the language and I want to come back here long term. So I finished college. So I was 17 at the time. So 18, 19. So 2 years later, I was just like, I studied Japanese very hard during, from 17 to 19. And I was just like, when I graduate college, I'm going to work a little bit and then save up to come back to Japan and live with my granddad, because he said I was able, he gave me permission. So I did a working holiday at 19 years old. I graduated my college, which was a cooking college. I was doing like chef stuff. So I was like a qualified chef, but I didn't really like it that much. So moved to Japan at 19 because my granddad just happened to be there, and he was there for 6 years in total. So I was able to kind of move in with him. I had family support, a working holiday, and they gave him like this massive house. Like the embassy gave him a massive house in the center of Tokyo. It was literally like 10-minute walk from Shibuya. But this was like a house, kind of like based on an American house almost. So we didn't really have any, it was like a standalone house.
In the center of Tokyo?
In the center of Tokyo.
Wow.
Like 4 bathrooms. 4 bathrooms with like a staircase and I was just like, this is amazing. This is like the best thing ever, because I'm not rich or anything, but my granddad just has a good job. We weren't very close, but because he's my dad's dad, I didn't grow up with my dad, which means that, we still had contact, but we were close enough for me to get in contact with my granddad and be like, hey, could I live with you maybe? So he was kind enough to be like, yeah, sure, come live with me. And I felt like royalty. For that year I was in Japan, I just felt like royalty, like the 4 bathrooms and I was just like...
Center of Tokyo.
Center of Tokyo. It was really, really nice. So literally 1 train to Shibuya, 2 stops. I was there in 5 minutes.
What was it when you went there for the first time at 17 that made you feel like, oh, I want to stay here long term? Because that's kind of still a young age to decide for such a big plan. Most people are kind of still lost at 17 and trying to figure out what they want to do, where they want to go.
I think I was Very different. I was always very different. I was weird. I was a weird kid. I was a bit nerdy. I wasn't necessarily that into anime. I watched a few animes and it definitely influenced me, but I was not an anime fan. I was still very new to anime. It was mainly the language that kind of captivated me. And I started learning Japanese for fun because I was bored. I don't know if you've watched a show called, the reason why I started Japanese in the first place, I don't know if you've watched a show called Heroes. I don't know if you remember that. Heroes. So there was a Japanese guy on there called Hero. It wasn't because of him. It was because of Claire's dad. So there was a superhero called Claire. She was invincible and she had a dad who originally was painted to be just some normal guy, you know, well-respected guy in the community, very, you know, just normal. He cared about his daughter, family man, good job. And then it turns out he was like one of the ringleaders of the Yakuza or something. Like in the season 2, we find out that he was like some kind of, you know, he was really like into like the dark parts of, and he knew all about his daughter's superpowers and he was kind of like the mastermind. But so he started talking Japanese. He walked into a Japanese kitchen, you know, with all these like Japanese gangsters and started talking Japanese. And I was just like, that is so cool. Like you wouldn't have expected him to be able to speak Japanese at all. Like we just thought he was just a regular churchman, you know. I want to be that. I want to be the black Japanese speaker. I've never seen a black guy speaking Japanese. So I was just like, what if I'm the black version of that? So I just started learning a few Japanese words see, I'm weird, right? So I just started learning a few Japanese words just to impress my Japanese friends, because I did have some Japanese friends. So I thought, you know, I'm bored, got nothing better to do. And then I tested it out with my friends. And my Japanese friends, and they really gassed me up. They were just like, oh my God, Richard, your Japanese is so cool. How did you learn this? Oh, why? What? And then I really liked the attention. So I just continued studying. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to learn even more. I want more of the attention. They make me feel good. And, you know, with that, I started learning more about the grammar and this and that. And then I started to get the hang of it. And then before I knew it, I could construct simple sentences. And the learning itself became really satisfying. So I developed a passion for the language eventually over the next few months. But it really just started from just the attention and the praise that I got from Japanese people, you know, and the satisfaction I got from connecting to people across the other side of the world.
It's interesting.
Like a secret code kind of thing.
A lot of people always say, oh, you need to find your passion and then kind of go into it. But what you're explaining now is like, oh, you had some interest and you had some time, you started something, and the passion came from doing it more and more and seeing progress in it.
Yeah, exactly. The passion for attention, the passion for receiving praise, you know, I don't know, maybe has something to do with my dad not being around much, but, you know, we don't have to get into that. However, the Japanese was great, and I just continued. So
you learned the language, you liked learning the language, but when you moved here the first time, what was it that kind of struck you and you were like, oh, this is so cool here in Japan?
I really liked how friendly everyone was. Everyone was smiling. Everyone seemed to be really interested in me and like, oh my gosh, you're from the UK, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't until a few years later that I realized that, you know, tatemae was a thing. So, you know, Japanese people are very polite people, but just because they seem interested in you doesn't necessarily mean that they are. So my dreams were kind of crushed there. But when I was there at 17, I was just like, wow, Japanese people are so kind, they're so nice, they're so polite. I really get along well with them. And I guess that's what made me feel good. And the fact that they really appreciated the fact that I was learning the language, you know, how they're always like, oh, Nihongo jouzu desu ne, you know, whether it's true or not, you know, it means your Japanese is good. They say Nihongo jouzu desu ne. And the bar is very low. So you can get Nihongo jouzu with if your Japanese is crap, like mine was back then.
Over saying one word.
You could be like, konnichiwa, and I'll be like, oh, Nihongo jouzu desu ne. And I realized, but that's what made me continue studying, funnily enough. You know, it annoys me now, but to be honest, if they hadn't been so over the top about it with the praise and stuff like that, I probably would have just lost interest. But I was just like, oh, wow, you know, maybe I have a talent for this. Maybe if my Japanese is really that good after saying kore wa cup desu, that's basically what I said. And they were like, wow. And I was just like, you know what? Maybe this is what I was meant to do. Maybe kore wa spoon desu.
Do you remember your very first day in Japan?
Very first day in Japan, I slept. I slept because of the jet lag, but I'll tell you about the second day. The second day, I realized that my hay fever was very, very bad in Japan. I don't really have hay fever. I have hay fever sporadically, but in this particular year in Japan, it was really, really bad. So I woke up, decided to go to the pharmacy or chemist, and
Chemist is in the UK, right?
chemist is the UK. Yeah. So I can't remember which one is which. So
Drugstore, pharmacist, chemist, one of them.
Yeah, so chemist. We say chemist. We say pharmacy too. But yeah, I went to the chemist to get some hay fever tablets. Now, hay fever is fukansho. No, it's kafunsho. See, I'm doing it again. So fukansho, I was saying fukansho, which so kafunsho is hay fever. Fukansho is the word I was saying because I thought that meant hay fever. So I walked in and I was just like, sumimasen, fukansho no kusuri wa arimasu ka? And they were looking at me like, maybe no. And I was just like, hay fever, like you don't have fukansho tablets. Everyone, like this is like one of the most basic things. Like how do you not have hay fever tablets? And I was just there for like 5 minutes, like fukansho tablets. And they were just like, no, sorry, maybe I can give you a number of for a therapist. And I'm just like, no, I don't need a therapist. I just want hay fever tablets. Like everyone in the UK suffers from this. Now, what I didn't realize is that fukansho means sexual frigidity. So what frigidity means is an abnormal, according to Google, is a abnormal lack of sexual interest. And I was basically asking, do you have a cure for the fact that I don't want to have sex? And so they were really kind. They were kind. They were just like, no, sorry, maybe. They were really asking, they were asking people in the back, fukansho no kusuri tte arimasu ka? And then there was like 3 people around me, 3 chemists, 3 pharmacists around me saying, no, I don't think there's an actual pill to cure your lack of sexual interest. So maybe we could refer you to someone. And I was just like, okay, let me just look on my dictionary because I was so convinced I was saying it correctly. So I looked on my phone and I was just like, oh wait, it's kafunsho. And they were like, kafunsho, hay fever ne? Hay fever. And I was just like, yes. Hay
That's
fever
what
tablets.
I said.
Exactly. And then I walked out of I just don't know why this had to happen on my second day. Like it was literally on my second day. I walked out of the chemist, so embarrassed. But it was a good story. And I made a skit about it. But for those of you who have seen the skit, that is a genuine 100% full story. So yeah, that's what happened on my first day. And then I probably drowned my sorrows in some tonkotsu ramen or something. I'm not exactly sure which one it was, but I definitely got something to eat after that.
So you knew Japan is the place you wanted to be and you wanted to keep learning Japanese. What was your plan for like staying here? Did you have any kind of career? You said you were studying culinary
right. So
arts, but didn't want to pursue that. So what was your plan work-wise here?
So I was on a working holiday visa. I had 1 year. So I decided, let me get some experience in the cooking realm. I don't really like cooking that much, but I like Japan and I have the qualification. So let me try and make the most of the qualification I had. So I started working in a ramen shop. First of all, I found a ramen shop not too far from where I lived, where my granddad lived. And I worked there for about 2-3 months. And I got to the interview and I was just like, yep, these are all my, accolades. I've been studying for 3 years. I'm very qualified. I know how to use a knife, so I'd love to learn how to make ramen. I was really enthusiastic about it. And he was just like, oh, toriaezu, please wash dishes. And I was just like, okay, well, sure, I don't mind. But like tomorrow or maybe like next week, I could start doing the cooking, right? And he was just like, oh, maybe no. And I was just like, I didn't understand it at first. But that was my first culture shock. Because no matter what your accolades are, or maybe he just didn't trust me, he didn't know who I was, he didn't recognize my university that I studied at. But you have to kind of like prove yourself, work your way up, understand how the restaurant works. So, I started off at the dishes. And by the time I left, I barely even got to make the ramen, to be honest. Like I was just washing dishes for like 2 months, taking payments, taking orders. But the ramen was like at the top. Like you couldn't just skip your way through it just because you have previous cooking experience. You had to work your way up within the restaurant, which was culture shock for me. Then I moved on to a curry shop, which I liked. I really, really loved it. My boss was great, very chill, very laid back. And I was more a waiter. I helped with some food preparation, but I was more of a waiter. But my ultimate goal was to learn. My ultimate goal was to become an ALT. I just wanted to stay in Japan no matter what the cost. So I thought I was 19 at the time. So I was like, my plan was to just switch onto a work visa, get an ALT position. So 2 months before my visa expired, I applied to a few jobs, and they were all like, "Oh, we'd love to hire you. Do you have a bachelor's degree?" And I said no, because I hadn't gone to university yet. So just to clarify, I went to college. I did a college course in a university, but it wasn't a bachelor's degree. It was more like a diploma, cooking diploma. So I hadn't had a bachelor's degree yet.
So similar to a Semmongako in Japan.
Exactly, it was Semmongako, exactly. So like a vocational skill, exactly. So I hoped that would be enough. And they were like, "No, it's not a bachelor's degree, so we can't hire you." So I was just like, damn, so my visa is really about to run out. And only now do I realize that if you don't have a bachelor's degree, I can't get a work visa. Or back then anyways, it was a lot harder. So I thought I had no choice. So I'm just like, well, I guess I'll just come back to England. I'm still 20 years old. I might as well just go to university for 3 years, come back by the time I'm 23, because that was my only dream. Like, I had such a good time in Japan. That 1 year was the best year of my life for many reasons, and we could talk about later. But all I wanted to do was stay in Japan. So I said, okay, you know what? It's not that bad. Let me just go to uni quickly, come back. Any course, I just did any course, which ended up being international law. And 7 years later, I've just graduated. So it took a lot longer than I expected, but hopefully I'll be back living in Japan officially by in the next, 3 to 6 months, hopefully. But I don't know if I made that clear to you guys. I'm not actually based in Japan.
Not at the moment.
At the moment, yeah, but I've been going back and forth. So my original plan didn't go, my original plan was to just get the degree, come back to Japan, maybe work in the translation field or something. But during my time in London, from 20 years old onwards, the social media stuff started, COVID happened, TikTok happened, and then I kind of took a different career path. So now I have a little bit more choice. Now that I'm here in Japan, I don't have to work for a company. Maybe I can, work for my own company or work as a content creator. So, things happen in life, and, now I'm here.
So let's talk about content creation, because you originally studied culinary arts. Now you just completed a degree in international law, but you do comedy. So when did that start and how?
So during COVID, there was an app that everyone was going crazy for. They're like, oh, this new app, you can make short videos, short comedy videos, or short, it's dancing, people dance on it, and blah, 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 blah. It was called TikTok. And I was just like, this seems like a very, it seems like an app for just kids who want to dance to music. But then I saw a few people making comedy videos on it, like people making relatable comedy skits or this or that. And I was just like, you know what? I've always wanted to do something performative. I've always been creative. I've always been the class clown. So I thought this could maybe be an opportunity for maybe to try something else. Like it's different from Instagram. Let me download TikTok. And I downloaded it for the sole purpose of creating. I knew I wanted to create videos on it just because I wanted to try it out and see if I could make comedy on it. So I started in 2020, or maybe, probably 2020, just making a few videos based off of British humor, relatable British humor, stuff like that. And I was only on there for a couple of weeks until I got my first viral video. But that wasn't related to British. It was related to Japan. It was... Actually, no, my first viral video was my transformation, like a glow-up video for when you were like a nerdy teenager, and then it shows your progression up until now. So if you'd seen me, what I look like a teenager, you'd understand why the video went viral.
Okay,
so
I'll have to go back to find that one.
Feel free to, I can send you the video later, and you can put it on the screen to show people what I'm talking about. But when I was around the time I was getting into Japan, I went a little bit too far into Japan, to the point where I was just like, I would love to have a Japanese hairstyle. So I originally, I've got dreadlocks now, but I had, afro, typical black hair, which I straightened so that it kind of looked like, white people hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of straightened it. I used a hair dryer I gave myself a quiff, I had a fringe at one point. Like, you know, it was, yeah, see, I see the face you're pulling right now. You're trying.
I'm just trying to picture
You're
this.
trying to picture it. Exactly. So I'll show you the video and you'll see, yeah, I literally had just literal white people hair. I thought I looked amazing. And that's why people were kind of, people in my class, they were used to me. They were used to how weird I was. But this transformation video went viral because they were just like, okay, this guy looked really, really weird. He was clearly influenced or too heavily influenced by something else or a different culture. He was trying to be quote unquote Japanese, or he was not embracing his natural beauty, I guess. So he's not embracing his afro hair, and he was trying to be too different to who he's supposed to be, kind of thing. So I guess that's why people really like that video, because over the years you can see, you know, my curls, I started to get my curls back, and I looked a lot more comfortable, confident in myself. And that was after I went to Japan. I realized, you know, there was value in being myself and stuff like that. So that's the first video that went viral. And it was entitled, Growing Out of My I Want to Be Japanese face. So when that went viral, people started to ask questions about, you know, why Japanese, why this, why that. So I thought, okay, let me talk to them a little bit more about the fact that I have lived in Japan. I was about 21, 22 at this point, 22. And let me show them that I can speak Japanese, because I taught myself. So I decided to maybe make a few videos about comedy videos, because that's just where my mind naturally gravitates to. There were comedy videos about natural experiences, real experiences I had in Japan. And they did really well because I was speaking Japanese as a black guy. And I think they did very well because it's just very interesting for people. It's a little bit, whether it's funny or not is not really the question. It was more about, you know, just the concept, the premise of, you know, a black guy speaking proficient Japanese. Like, wow, that's actually kind of interesting. You know, I don't maybe understand the comedy because not everyone gets it. If they don't live in Japan, then maybe they don't get the humor behind it. But they were more impressed at the fact that I could speak. So that video went viral. Well, not necessarily viral, but it did well. Maybe got like 300K, 500K.
That's pretty viral.
Yeah, for my first 2 weeks. And then I thought, okay, let me make another one, because I've got more funny stories in Japan. And then make another one. And my comedic style, I guess, was just kind of playing the characters myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I got it from. It was just what came to me naturally.
You started making those videos back in the UK, you quickly shifted towards talking about Japan and speaking Japanese. Your audience at that time, was it also based in the UK, based in Europe, or did you notice quickly like a Japanese audience kind of finding your videos and interacting with you?
I think it started off as UK. It started off with UK and then trickled into the other English-speaking countries like Australia, US, Canada. And then I started to get a community of like anime, people who are interested in anime. You know? So anyone who's into anime will have seen my videos. I'm very confident because, you know, the anime community is really strong. They're just very, very powerful. Whether it's anything anime related, Japanese language related, or foreigner speaking Japanese, they get very impressed by that because they're like, oh, I've always kind of wanted to learn Japanese. Not everyone is, you know, motivated to start, but they're all kind of impressed by the idea of speaking Japanese. So they're just like, oh, this foreigner speaking Japanese is actually really cool. And he's kind of making comedy. So, yeah, most of my biggest chunk of audience is US. Yeah, and then I had a lot of Malaysian, Southeast Asians for a while. Like for a while, it was a big chunk of like Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore for some reason. And then America took over, and then England, and then Japan. But most of those followers are foreigners in Japan.
Living in Japan.
Yeah, I do have Japanese followers, but not so much.
Two centerpieces of your comedy are your characters, Mr. Hashimoto and Momo-chan. How did they come to be?
They are caricatures. They are caricatures of the kind of people you would find in Japan. So this is not necessarily a generalization, but more, well, actually it's partially a generalization. I'm not saying all Japanese people are like this, but these are the kind of characters that you will commonly come across. And a lot of them came about from a real personal experience that happened to me. So for example, Mr. Hashimoto, these people were not actually supposed to be recurring characters. They weren't supposed to be recurring characters. These people, they just happened to be in a very viral video to the point where I was just like, let me do another video with them. And people loved them so much that I just gave them names. So this is a very interesting story. I don't know if you guys have time, for me to
We've
actually
got plenty
really
of time.
go into. Okay, so Momo-chan. Momo-chan is based off of a real girl that I met. So her name was Momo. She was a Japanese girl called Momo. We spoke. It was maybe 3 years ago. I was still in London, and she was in Japan. She found me through my content. We started talking. I thought she was cute. We FaceTimed a few times, and as soon as I heard her speak on FaceTime, she was just like, "Yeah, what up? Yeah, no, I'm just chilling. And then I was just like, why is it that you sound blacker than me? And then I realized, oh, she just likes black guys. And that's where she's learnt her English. And this is a common phenomenon. There's a common phenomenon because Japanese people have types. Japanese people are into hip hop. They're into this and that. They're Japanese people that are into black culture. And with that comes the attraction for people of that type. So, it's very common that if a girl is really into, hip hop or black culture, she has a curiosity for black guys. It happens. There's nothing wrong with that, having a type. But the interesting thing is that a lot of them haven't lived abroad, but they end up dating black guys who maybe come to Japan. Let's say Marines, for example, is a very common one. They'll date black Marines who come, get stationed in Japan that way. And then they get influenced. Their English gets influenced by the black Marine talking in his black accent. And the Japanese girl, the sweet, Japanese girl starts talking in this like really heavy, aggressive, black sounding English. She's just like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Like, I just went at a 7-Eleven and my boyfriend, my man's like, he was in there with another woman. Like, and I'm saying, why you playing with me like that, dog? You don't expect a Japanese girl to sound,
not
but
at all.
That's just kind of how it happens sometimes, and they just pick up English that way, and I think it's just like really interesting. So this Momo that I spoke to for a couple of weeks, she was she was not going through a breakup. She had gone through a breakup maybe about a month or two before we met, and she was still not over it. So I was kind of interested in her. I was interested in getting to know her, and I'm a nice guy. Pure intentions, but she had been hurt too many times in the past because she was into, I guess, just her selection. So she'd been cheated on and betrayed and this and that. So
everything you can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And she was not really ready for a genuine nice guy. So every time I would say something like, oh, I can't wait to spend time with you, get to know you a little bit better. I'd say sweet things, she would be like, yeah, okay, whatever, I don't care. And I realized she would do that all the time. She would always deflect the nice things that I said because she didn't want to get her hopes up and then get hurt again. So she was somewhat a little bit emotionally unstable because in one sentence, she would talk about how much she wanted kids. And then in the very same sentence, she would say, oh no, but I don't need no man. I don't even want a family like that. Like if I could just have one kid, but no man, I would do that because I don't even need a man. But I want to get married by 23. But I don't even really need a man like that. Like all these men is trash, dog. Like, so she didn't seem to really know what she wanted. She knew what she wanted, but she didn't know what she wanted, and she didn't want to be hurt. And I was just like, okay, this is very interesting. So that's where the bipolar nature of my Momo-chan comes from, because you can, when she speaks Japanese, she's very sweet and cute, and then when she switches to English, she sounds really angry and aggressive. That's kind of where it came from. And while we were talking, I made the Momo-chan video. While I was talking to this girl, I made the Momo-chan video as a way of, it was just a twisted way of flirting with a girl. I was just like, I made a video dedicated to you, making fun of how black you speak. And that video did like 1 million in just a few hours. Like it went really crazy. And I was just like, hey, look, I made a video about making fun of you, and we're, did you like it? And she was just like, and she actually liked it. She was just like, oh, she was really, I'm glad that she was glad that the video did well and it was kind of dedicated to her. So, she doesn't mind. She didn't mind that I made videos making fun of her. But it was more kind of like a kind appreciation for who she is kind of thing. Like, because it was just like it was supposed to portray my surprise of hearing her speak for the first time. So a few weeks later, we spoke for a period of 2 weeks only. It wasn't really that long, our talking stage. And I decided to cut it off because we would FaceTime for about 3 hours at a time, and we had a nice conversation. But she'd do this thing where, again, she was a little bit bipolar. She didn't really know what she wanted. So we'd get off the FaceTime after 3 hours, and then she'd be like, on her story, she'd go straight to her story and say, "Oh my gosh, I miss my ex-boyfriend so much." And I was just like, okay, well, I'm not really a fan of that because, we are kind of talking and we're not together or anything, but I don't think you're ready to move on and date at this point.
It's interesting how this kind of short interaction with one person that you never really met face to face, but just basically online during lockdown created this character that now millions of people are watching on your social media, and that has been kind of going on for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And you combine Momo-chan with Hashimoto-san. Does he have a similar story that brought him to life?
He is basically just the salaryman that, a lot of the time they're drunk. You meet them in Shibuya and they're like really trying to relate to you. They're like, "Oh, so cool, né? You look like Will Smith." They would say that all the time. But that's kind of like, I think the first ever Mr. Hashimoto video was me at a job interview, kind of like this. And Mr. Hashimoto was just like, not surprised. He was surprised that I was black. And he was just trying to prove just how okay he was with the fact that I was black. Insisting like, black is okay, black is beautiful. But when the problem with that sometimes is that when people try and, go too hard with that, they end up being racist by mistake. They kind of overdo it to the point where they are generalizing a lot. So they're like, "Oh, black people, I like hip hop, Tupac, very good. Black is beautiful, Black Lives Matter, respect. I respect you." So they go a little bit, too far to the point where it's a little bit uncomfortable. And Mr. Hashimoto is just a caricature of that kind of person. They try to relate to you a little bit too much. I don't mind it. I think it's funny. But it's like a blind spot. They don't realize that they're being a little bit too much, like, "Oh, basketball." And they start throwing out all the stereotypes like, "Oh, you guys are great singers. Black people, good singer. Michael Jackson, and Michael Jordan, basketball, good guy. Black people are so fast.
Usain Bolt.
Usain Bolt, so fast. So you have, big penis, all that kind of stuff. So just stereotypes.
A lot of your skits also center around this topic of like blackness in Japan and the interaction of Japanese people with black culture. Is this a lot of things that come from personal experiences as well that you're kind of trying to relate through comedy?
My experiences through my skits are basically all based on true experiences. Of course, I only spent a year in Japan, so like the true stories, you run out of true 100% accurate stories. Even though there are a lot of accurate stories on my page, it got to a point where I needed to take a concept of I needed to do some creative writing in order to create the skit. So now I've run out of true stories. So what I do now is I take something that's happened to me in the past and I create a skit around the concept of the problematic issue that had happened to me in the past. For example, let's say a Japanese person saying the N-word unknowingly and repeating it to me, that's kind of happened in the past. They didn't realize how bad it was, but they were just like, literally one of my work friends might have come up to me and be like, "Oh, N-word." They say the N-word actually in my face. They'll be like, "Oh, N-word or do you mean like what does it mean?" kind of thing. And then another colleague will be like, say the word as well, like, "Oh, N-word or what? Yeah, maybe bad or we shouldn't say." And then another colleague comes saying, "Oh, what are you guys talking about? Oh, N-word?" And then all of a sudden
the whole office is here talking
just
about
saying the N-word around me kind of thing. Yeah. So I kind of over exaggerate it sometimes. So I'm just like, oh, okay, this kind of happened to me just casually. I taught them, obviously in the actual situation where it happened, I taught them the N-word is not really the most considerate thing to say if you're not black, and some people can get really offended by it. But in terms of content and comedic writing, I start to think of what scene can I what setting can I do this in? Can I change the setting? Can I over exaggerate this in a way to make it like really, really funny? What characters can I use for it? So instead, if it happened to me in the workplace, maybe for my video I can do it in at my girlfriend's parents' place. So maybe now my girlfriend's parents are calling me the N-word, and I kind of go from there. But the fundamental fact of this is the fact that the N-word, they say the N-word unknowingly sometimes, or it's to highlight the ignorance of Japanese people. So there's truth to my skits. They might not necessarily be based on a true story, but they are just skits based on something that is true, to the point where a Japanese person can watch my video and be like, you know what, I can see that happening. That is likely to happen, because it has happened before in a different context, different environment.
setting.
Yeah. So I just kind of tweak the environment, tweak the
But the concept
is
stays
there.
at the same.
Yeah.
A lot of this, like you mentioned, around blackness and kind of cultural misunderstandings and use of the N-word. Do you feel like this has made your personal experience in Japan kind of different than maybe other foreigners as well?
I think there's a slightly different experience depending on where you're from. Like if you're a black foreigner, if you're a white foreigner, or maybe an Asian foreigner, even a Southeast Asian foreigner, everyone has a slightly different flavor in terms of their experience of Japan. We all share the same. There are some very mutual experiences that we all have as foreigners. Let's say in the workplace, Japanese people maybe not thinking we are capable, or maybe feeling a little bit excluded from the Japanese groups. Sometimes every foreigner feels like they're not truly accepted as a Japanese person, which, I understand, we're not Japanese, but every foreigner feels that kind of distance sometimes. Like Japanese people can be really nice, really cool, they like you, but you will never be in their like tight inner circle. You hear that a lot from a lot of foreigners. It's very hard to make like close, tight, lifelong friends with someone who can only speak Japanese. It's very hard to just integrate yourself like that. And I think we all share that things like that, we all share that experience. But then within that, there's different like sub experiences, because there's no reason for a Japanese person to call a white guy an N-word. There's no reason for that to really come up in conversation. But if I'm black, that might come up in the conversation. Racial slurs, whatever, just like, and then maybe someone from Southeast Asia, maybe someone from South Asia, like whether they're from like India or Pakistan, they can have their own, they can experience their own stereotypes. Let's say, I was working in a curry restaurant and a Japanese salaryman walked in, and he was just like namaste to me. And I was just like, well, I'm not Indian, but at the same time, I did have a little bit of straight hair back then. So that's probably why he thought I was Indian. I just look a little bit Indian with my straight hair. But you know what I mean? It's a little bit weird. He didn't know whether I was Indian or not. It's kind of like walking into a Chinese restaurant and being like, konnichiwa, kind of thing. And that happens too. So,
do you feel that by taking all of these kind of small happenings in daily life and turning them into comedy, you're able to kind of facilitate an open communication around the topic? And a lot of these incidents, I think, come from ignorance, perhaps, but that by kind of going viral and making comedy about it, people kind of are able to self-reflect without feeling like they're being attacked or criticized for something, but rather just may realize, oh, maybe next time I see a black person, I will just not use the N-word because it's actually not appropriate. Yeah,
so I feel like if we want to make it seem like I am trying to do good to the world and trying to change it, I could say that, if I wanted to pretend like, oh yeah, I'm making these videos to raise awareness and make people act, end racism and stuff like that. I would love to end racism, and I feel like I accidentally somewhat ending racism in some kind of way, perhaps. But really, I just made these videos to just be funny. I made these videos to make people laugh. I admit my videos are borderline racist. However, they are kind of funny and they are kind of accurate. And I haven't been cancelled yet, which is surprising. However, I think the reason why even Japanese people find my videos funny is because they see truth to it. They're like, you know what? This is racist as hell, but you imitate Japanese people really, really well. So I'm going to give you a pass on that. Like, it's not a general kind of, I'm not putting on a general Asian accent to mock all Asians. It's genuinely targeted to specifically to Japanese people. I've lived in Japan. I know what they sound like. I know what they say. And a lot of the time, these are my personal experiences. So I feel like people don't really want to, they can't really discredit my personal experience. So on the one hand, to answer your question, or to be relevant to your question, on the one hand, I am a lot more, I am raising awareness. I feel like all the Japanese people that are viewing my videos, you know, about the N-word and these racial problems and stuff like that, they are kind of learning. But at the same time, I think it's more important for people to laugh. I think, if we're talking about my typical skit style, it's just fun. It's just fun. It's just comedy. And it can be educational. If you can take something educational from that, great. But really, I just want to show people my Japanese impressions and talk about my experiences in Japan based as a black person, and kind of teach people about, you know, this is how it can be. We can laugh about it. You know, I racially abuse myself as well. Like with the characters, when I'm playing a Japanese person, I've called myself the N-word multiple times. And then I kind of, the fact that I'm imitating a Japanese person is also kind of, making fun of Japanese people in a way as well. But I'm making fun of myself as Richard too, because it's literally, I'm playing myself. So I feel like everyone is getting a piece of, everyone's being made fun of.
With the goal of basically making people laugh, as you just pointed out. What makes a good video? What makes a good skit?
What makes a good skit? I think layers. I feel like layers, that should be, puns are great. Using the dialogue. I think if we're talking about skits, the dialogue needs to be really, really good. And what I mean by good dialogue is very hard to explain, just kind of off the top. But I think if we're talking about social media, maybe 60 seconds or 90 seconds at the very, very, very most. 60 seconds of fast A to B dialogue, set the scene, where are we, who are we talking to, maybe in the first 5 to 10 seconds, say something funny, as in like a funny catchphrase, why it's relevant. But a lot of the time is very subtle as well. There's a lot of subtlety in terms of like how I look at the camera as well. Just like, confusion. Like if I'm, asking for hay fever tablets and I say the wrong word, I think confusing the audience ever so slightly when they're like, I'm at the chemist and he's just asked for sexual frigidity tablets. I feel like the viewer is just like, wait, why would he be at the chemist asking for sexual frigidity tablets? So then they kind of watch on to be like, oh, okay, he's probably saying the wrong things. Let me see what he's actually trying to say. So I think there's a little bit of mystery, and you kind of uncover. I don't really know what I'm saying right now, to be honest. I'm just.
How much work goes into one video? What is the amount of work that people don't see when they just watch the 60 seconds?
I spend about 3 hours on one video, including filming. So maybe an hour for filming and 2 hours for editing. So each video that I put out is about 3 hours at least. So the more...
Plus the writing beforehand.
The writing, well, sometimes I do it on the spot. A lot of the time my notes are just two words that sound similar to each other. Something that I've come across in real life. I always have a notebook with me, or my iPhone notes, And if I think of an interesting concept like, kafunsho, fukansho, I'll just write that down, fukansho, kafunsho, in my notes. And then when I'm ready to write a skit, I'll go through my notes and be like, fukansho, kafunsho. And then I'll just kind of build upon it in my head. And sometimes I will just kind of record something and then stop it and then think of something again and then record again. So I'll kind of create the skit as I'm recording sometimes, which is cool. So I don't have a hard solidified script, not all the time. Sometimes I do, and they work out great. But a lot of the time you find your funniest videos when you're kind of like, it's almost like you're just warming up. I'm just in front of the camera like, okay, fukansho, kafunsho, maybe no. And then I'll be like, oh, that's a good one. And I'll record it, and then I'll come back again and be like, I'll think of something, and then I'll record that. And then a lot of the time, the funniest, most iconic bits of every video are things that I've just thought of while I was recording. They weren't pre-planned or anything. They were just like, maybe no, for example. Maybe no is one of my most important, one of the more common phrases, or standing together for Floyd or Mayweather. That just came to me while I was recording. I already had like a rough script, and then I was just like, standing together for Floyd. That sounds kind of funny. Standing together for Floyd and Mayweather. And those are kind of like, they just come naturally a lot of the time during filming. So filming, let's say an hour and a half if we want to include filming and the script writing, because sometimes I'm writing the script and filming and coming up with new ideas is kind of like, you know.
So all in all, it's just like a lot of ideas maturing in your head over time, and then when the time is right, it's just like, let's go, I have it, I'm filming.
Exactly.
And it kind of comes. That's interesting.
Exactly. But sometimes I just come up with, the best ideas are the more spontaneous ones, where I'm just like, it just comes to me and I go straight to my phone. So it comes to me and I make it right on the spot. Those are usually the more successful videos. The ones where I have to really think about it and be like, no, that's not funny. No, that's not funny. Whereas where I'm too deliberate with it, those are the videos that are less authentic, and they don't get as much views. But the ones that just come to me where I'm just like, I need to make this video right now, those are always the more successful ones, funnily enough. I don't know what it is, but when I have a good idea, I know it's a good idea, and I'm just like, this is going to be amazing, and I have to make it straight away.
Humor varies quite a lot from country to country, culture to culture. And the UK is known for having like a very sarcasm-heavy humor, a lot of puns, maybe self-deprecation as well.
Yeah.
Whereas in Japan, people often say Japanese people don't like sarcasm too much. But you actually recently released a video talking about sarcasm in Japan.
Yeah.
Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on kind of how the different concepts and the different aspects of what goes into humor change, and sometimes actually don't change so much?
Yeah, so my videos are, I would say, it's British humor, it's Western humor 100%, which is why if you showed my video to a Japanese person, like a Japanese person, I find that they laugh at the wrong things, as in they laugh in the wrong places. They're laughing at my wig, they're laughing at, you know, the mistakes I'm making in Japanese. They're not laughing at like the really funny subtlety that a Westerner would pick up. So, or they just won't understand it at all. Is either they're laughing at the wrong places, or they just don't understand. They're just like, okay, it's an Indian guy talking Japanese, and he's now dressed like a girl. I don't really get it. So when I said that Japan doesn't have sarcasm, that was more of a hook more than anything. I think that Japan does have sarcasm, but it's just a different style, used in a different way, different flavor, if we want to be really, accurate about it. But it's, the dry, sarcastic humor that we have in the UK, we use it for comedy. Whereas in Japan, they use dry, sarcastic humor a lot for teasing people, which we do as well. But in Japan, it's a lot more negative. It's a little bit more, it's more rude, I think, in Japan. So they use sarcasm, but it's more to pick on people, make fun of people, which we use as well. But sometimes using sarcasm is like, for example, if I was on a date with a Japanese girl and I was just like, so, I was born a woman and I've been transitioning. Within the context, you kind of, I would expect them to kind of pick up the fact that I'm, being sarcastic. I wasn't born a woman, by the way. That was just the sarcasm. However, in Japan, or Japanese girl might just be like, do you just believe me? You'll be like, oh, sonanda.
So basically, if you say something, also how you deliver the message, if you say something seriously, they will just assume you're saying it seriously.
That is the, yeah, that is the point. Yeah, because this is a funny thing that really happened to me in the curry shop that I used to work at. I left the cheese out of the fridge, and it was a very small shop. And after 2 p.m., it was empty, completely empty. We had a big lunch, and everyone went back to work. It was empty, but I left the cheese out of the fridge, and my boss was just like, Ricchaado, cheese o kippanashi, you left the cheese outside again. And I was just like, Tanaka-san, sumimasen. I was so busy with all the customers, like, my mind is, so crazy right now. So yeah, I'll put it back now. And Tanaka-san was just standing there like, Okyaku-san daremo inai jan. Like, we don't have any customers here. So, and I was just like, yeah, I know. And he was just like, so why are you lying? And I was just like, no, I'm not lying. I was just making a joke. And he was just like, where's the joke? You just lied to my face, and there was nothing funny about that. And I was just like, yeah, but it's like sarcasm, because you know that there's no customers in the shop. I know there's no customers in the shop. So when I say that there were so many customers in the shop, that was the joke. And he was just like, no, because I don't even know if I can trust you anymore, bro. Like, if you are just lying to my face like this constantly, I won't know whether I can really trust you. Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, well, that's half of my personality gone. I don't think I can really use sarcasm in Japan anymore, because my boss thinks I'm a liar now, even though he knows that I know that there's no customer. So, and that happened a few times. So they don't use sarcasm in that way, in the same way, and Tanaka-san was cool. He was a cool guy. So it's not like I'm just using sarcasm to my boss in a, like, he was a cool guy. We were casual, we joked, that kind of thing. But he just didn't get the concept, I don't think, in the way and situation I was using it. They use it in different situations.
You've been making content now for 4 years, and if you started in 2020, you've grown your accounts a lot, have quite a few videos that have gone very viral. When was the moment where you kind of realized, oh, actually now I can consider making this a career, as you were studying law and had your cuisine background, and you're like, oh, maybe now there's this third option kind of building?
Yeah, I was still working in a ramen restaurant in London, and I was primarily on TikTok. I started off on TikTok. That's where I get most of my following, and my Instagram grew later on. But I got a sponsorship for, it was literally just £50, like 80 USD to use a song in one of my skits. Not a skit, sorry. It was they asked me to make an emotional video about my life or something, and it was a music label. They said, we'll pay you 80 USD to use this song that we're trying to promote in your, And then I was just like, okay, that was pretty easy. It was the easiest $80 I'd ever made. And I was just, it didn't happen often, but I thought, I saw other people online doing it. I saw other influencers doing, similar things. And I was just like, wait, that, maybe this is a chance for me to, maybe I could approach more music labels. Maybe I can do this more often. If I could just use their song for $80, who says that I can't do this like twice a week and make the same amount I do working part-time in this ramen shop, just by, instead of working 20 hours a week, I could work 2 hours a week and make the same amount. So that's when I considered, I had around 150K on TikTok, and I got a little bit extra excited because 150K on TikTok is actually, in the grand scheme of things, not that much in terms of monetizing. It's not very monetizable. With TikTok, I think you need a little bit more of a following. TikTok followers are not they're young kids a lot of the time, so they're not necessarily paying customers. They're just people who like viewing your videos. So, but I got excited. I was just like, I'm already on 150K, because I was really just blowing up so I thought, okay, you know what? I worked for about 6 more months, and then I quit a little bit earlier than I should have, because I didn't have a plan, but I wanted to put that pressure on myself to make I knew I didn't want to be working at the ramen shop for any longer, because I wasn't really enjoying it that much. And I quit a little bit early, and I didn't really have so I was kind of just like laying the bricks as I was going and pressuring myself to be like, okay, I don't have a job right now. I need to make money as quick as possible through social media. And that's kind of how I thought of Ricchaado Academy. What's a service that I can offer like instantly? What can I teach people? And then I thought, okay, everyone's asking me how I learn Japanese, how they can do it. So, okay, maybe I can offer like some tuition. Maybe I can be like, hey, learn Japanese with me, £30, I don't know, $40 an hour, $30 an hour. I started off very cheap. I think I started off at maybe $20 an hour or $15 an hour. And people I got more and more interest. So I thought, okay, maybe, who knows, maybe I could set up a little tuition thing or academy or whatever. And it just kind of grew from there. But
so
yeah.
you didn't decide to just make the content and just try to live off the content, but rather to build something with it. And Ricchaado Academy is this kind of first service you started offering, which is a Japanese language studying, help, support, coaching.
Exactly.
Because you're entirely self-taught.
Yeah. I attended like a 3-month thing here in Japan, but other than that, 3 months out of 9 years now. So yeah, pretty much entirely self-taught.
So what can people expect now in this, because you still offer these courses, right?
I offer the courses. Yeah, business has been a little bit slow because I've been very busy. I had so many projects on. So business has been slow because I get all my customers from posting on social media. I don't run ads or anything. I literally just post videos. They do very well. They're funny adverts. There's funny comedy videos with a little ad at the end saying, get educated at Ricchaado Academy. So if I don't do that, then naturally the amount of students I have enrolled at one time just naturally, go down and down and down. But I still offer it. We're still building on it's still new. It's still, we're still trying to get the website, solidified. We're still trying to get the booking system, like the class booking system, solidified. We're still working on things. It's still we're not 100% like established in the way that I want to be. But yeah, we correspond mainly through email. So if you want to have a lesson, I've got an email assistant. I've got an admin, like small admin team who can set you up with classes. But it's going to become a lot more accessible right now. Over the next month or so, we've got a website being built where people can literally just select their courses, select their class. And yeah, that's pretty much
So by the time this episode is out, this will already be updated and live then?
Well, hopefully. It depends on when the episode is coming out, but I expect it to be done in the next 2 months, month or two. Yeah, website is 99% done. So
what kind of classes are you offering, and how is it maybe different than some traditional Japanese classes that most people tend to gravitate towards?
So we teach like essential grammar, such as bukkake, hentai, all that kind of stuff. So, really like essential Japanese. See, that was dry sarcasm, you see? Yeah. I feel like I need to make that clear now. But what's different about it is, we just teach stuff, very inappropriate stuff. We teach proper grammar. We teach all the like real Japanese stuff, but we sprinkle in some inappropriate, stuff that, rude words, that you probably would only learn once you come to Japan. Slang. There's a heavy what's the word? We place a lot of importance on learning slang as well. So people that, slang that you learn while talking to someone at the bar or talking to your, young Japanese people. And yeah, that's basically what's different about Ricchaado Academy. Like, we're just a little bit more fun, laid back.
So Japanese applied to a more unusual and more familiar, more casual context, and not the standard like textbook phrases that.
Well, we teach those as well. We definitely teach those as well, because it is a real course. It is a real course, real Japanese, with a little bit of spice added into it. So let's say you'd have a vocabulary list of, real words that you need to use, like car, banana, he, she, you, they, Mount Fuji, just for the sake of the lesson. And then we'd have at the end, like, bonus words such as yariman, yarichin, just words like, how would you say slut in Japanese? If you ever need it, well, there you go. So it's just stuff like that. And sorry, there was a question that you asked before. There was another first. I answered the second part of your question first. I don't know if you remember.
It escaped me too. So I think.
But I think that was pretty much it.
And on top of this, one of your latest ventures now is also your tours. And you just came to visit us today after finishing your very first one, actually.
Yes.
Guided tours in Japan. What kind of brought this idea? Moving from comedy content to teaching Japanese to tours in Japan.
Yeah. So what brought me to doing the group tours is I just needed the money. And it turned out to be really, really great. I just I realized that I got to be honest, I got approached by Trover Trip as another brand who they manage the group tours, and they approach a bunch of influencers, and they initially charge they offer the group tours, and then they get me, the influencer, to sell the group tours, and they take care of all the logistics. They provide the tour guide and provide the itinerary and stuff like that. So I'm basically just the face of the trip, and then I travel with the students. So but they're scammers, man. They're not scammers, but they tried to finesse me with the profits, and I realized just how much I was losing by doing it with Trover Trip. So I actually parted ways with them, and I had already sold some tickets. We had a group chat of me and the travelers. So I was just like, guys, we're done with Trover Trip. I understand the fee was overpriced. I'm going to give everyone a $900 discount, and you're going to do the trip with me. We're going to provide the same itinerary, except I'm going to do it with members of my team, and we're going to go out and have a good time. We're not going to be tied to a rigid schedule. And we're going to have a rough itinerary. We're going to make friends. It's going to be nice. It's going to be so much more affordable, and you're going to get value for money. So we did it independently, and financially it was a lot more profitable for me because I realized just how much. So they paid me directly. So they got refunds. They already deposited something to Trover Trip, but they got refunds, paid directly to me, and I realized just how much they were taking from me, kind of thing. I was just like, why didn't I do this by myself in the first place? Only thing is, now all the responsibility is on me. So I have to book the hotels, book the itinerary, book the activities, hire the tour guide, make sure we know where we're going. And that was a little bit stressful. But it was in no way worth the amount I was giving Trover Trip to do it. It was not justifiable. So we did it. It was a group trip. 7 days. The people were absolutely amazing. I made friends for life on that trip. They were absolutely amazing. The people that we met, some of them were students of Ricchaado Academy as cool. Well. Yeah, so I was meeting some people that I knew, like from teaching them. They were at the trip, and so I was familiar with some of the people as well. And then some new strangers, new faces. They turned out to be some of the coolest people ever. There were a few hiccups, but it was my first ever trip. So I wrote down the notes. What we needed to do. We need to be more punctual, be a bit more communicative.
Maybe things to turn into skits coming in a near future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything is skit material. But next one will probably be in spring, and I'm just gonna keep doing it once I iron out the creases.
So moving from content creation to now teaching and doing tours. It's a lot of work. Is it something you're still managing by yourself? You mentioned we a few times. Do you have like a team that you're working with now, or just kind of friends that support? Or
a bit of both. It is mainly me in the sense that I am the only manager. I'm the only coordinator, and I try and delegate things that I need to the people who are on my team working part time. If I need a favor. I've got a team of freelancers, so people that I go to who will do a job for me if I, pay them to complete a certain task. So for example, Arisu Sensei, she's appeared in my skits a few times. I don't know if you're familiar. She was, an amazing, very, very talented individual. Her Japanese is probably the best non-native Japanese I've ever heard in my life. She's a ex-idol performer, very, very, very talented, and she took on the burden of being the group tour guide for the group tour. So she took on a lot of burden. She was orchestrating the travelers. She is funny, so if I need her for a skit, then she hops in a skit and just does an amazing job. She's very funny. She kept everyone entertained. She's very funny. She's very good at talking to people, engaging people, acting like she has human emotions, even though she's pretty dead on the inside. And she's an amazing person. So Arisu is one of the people who I can kind of count on to say, I need this job done. Do you think you'll be able to help me? And she uses her talent and her Japanese skill to get it done. And a few other people, like Johnny in my admin team and here and there. But right now, I'm still the only coordinator, so it can get a little bit stressful. I don't have anyone that I work, tightly with at the moment. But in the future, as my company grows, I've got a few more endeavors on the way. I've got an English course that I'm working on as well. So got a lot of projects. I'm very excited. But
so the reality of turning content creation into a sustainable business is a lot of work and having to be on multiple fronts at the same time, and not as easy as a lot of people tend to think, you just have to post videos and then...
Yeah, it is a lot of work, but I enjoy it because it's creative work. I feel like I'm fulfilled. This is my, I feel like this is my calling. So it is a lot of work, but I genuinely enjoy posting videos, making brands, starting new projects, group tours. This is what fulfills me. I don't get paid by Instagram to post videos. Like in the UK, we don't have a system for it. I think the creator fund is a thing in America, but I don't get paid for any of my Instagram videos. So if I'm not trying to lead people to somewhere else, then I'm not making money on Instagram. TikTok, the pay is questionable. It used to be horrible. It used to be horrible. It's much better now, but my videos on TikTok get taken down a lot, either because of inappropriate language or maybe the music that I use is copyrighted, because that kind of the TikTok copyright music thing happened, and a lot of my stuff is ineligible now. So I don't make much money off TikTok at all, if anything. I haven't withdrawn from TikTok for almost half a year because there's no point. There's barely anything in there. So I thought, I am moving on to YouTube because the pay on YouTube is much better. I get to put my creativity to the test. You can create movies now. That's what I'm getting more into, like creating actual genuine content, long form videos. That takes a lot of time. But it's so fulfilling to use, to do YouTube stuff. And on the side, I think you need to have multiple streams. So Ricchaado Academy is one. And then I'm starting another thing called Ayo Eigo, which is where we teach British English or slang British English. Very similar to Ricchaado Academy, but learning English aimed at Japanese people. So for anyone who's interested in London or London slang, British English, that kind of thing, it's a lot of work. But again, I love building brands. I love just being creative, advertising through comedy. And I can't wait to start posting videos about Ayo Eigo because I have loads of skit ideas for Japanese people.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah.
When can we expect you to finally come back here to Japan?
I will be back next year, hopefully by spring, and I'll be here permanently, which means I can do my YouTube videos, I could do my YouTube stuff. It will only help if I'm in Japan to do my YouTube stuff.
A lot more content, a lot more anecdotes to share through skits and comedy.
Yep.
Richard,
Definitely.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story, sharing your insights into your work and everything you've been doing so far. We covered quite a few points, I think.
We did, yeah. Thank you for listening to me rambling. I just kept talking, but you're a very good listener. So
it was super interesting.
Thank you.
I certainly learned a lot.
Yeah.
I hope our listeners enjoyed it just as much as I did. This was Unpacking Japan, and we will be back again next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future conversations. And we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, here are a couple more that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next time.